I see more and more.
Oh.
Please note that we're going to record this meeting. So I believe that the recording has started, but we'll just wait a little because we know we have much more registration. So if I kindly ask you to mute yourself when you're coming in, or part the speakers, then we avoid the background noise. So, okay, I see people are still coming in. If I can ask you to mute your mic, and then we wait for a couple more minutes. So we avoid all the beaking and beaking when we are talking. Okay, allez, 04. Then the people who will come in, Eleni Milan, I let you do the entry when it's beeping up. So we have quite of a nice program coming up for the next hour and a half. We have 3 speakers with us. We have Jörg Liss, which is VP Corporate Strategy and Research and Technology at AVL, and also the chair of the Research and Innovation Working Group at Business Europe. We have Laure Dullier, which is Senior Advisor Energy, Climate Innovation at Orgalim. And we have Daniel Vito, Executive Director Innovation at CEFIC. And for once we thought, well, EARTO, RTOs, let's have a discussion with the industry we are actually working quite hard with in the framework program and not always be the one talking. So we will give a small update of where we think we are at in the discussion, and then hear about Jörg and Laure and Daniel to tell us a little what their positions are, what are the discussion in their groups, how do they see the current situation, what may be the open questions we have, what do we have collectively, I think, to be careful with. So we'll try to do a small round of, where we are at, where we see things are advancing. I think it's a very exciting period at the moment. I think a lot of things will be discussed in the next year. So we're a bit of a wrap up before the Christmas holidays coming up in 2 weeks' time. So especially that there had been a lot of discussion this week. So I think it's interesting that we do a bit of recall. So let me start before I give the floor to our different speakers, and then we will do also a session of Q&As, where we think we are at. And so everybody, let's say, get the list of where our agenda is at the moment. So you know that the big discussion is on our next EU budget. That in this EU budget, we have been presented by the idea of a big European competitiveness fund. We know that in the documents leaked by DG or for DG Budge, the discussion is to have quite a restructuration of how the budget is being made. And I think one of the scenario would be if we would have a big European competitiveness fund or heading in the budget, that this will regroup a lot of the current program and including the framework program and maybe some part of the program. So a lot of question on how the next budget will be made and what will be the place of the framework program in that budget, and how the link between the FP and the competitiveness fund will be made, will be included in that fund. It will be a line of budget. I mean, there's many scenarios being discussed at the moment. And what we know is that actually the EU budget will decide a lot of things for the next framework program. And I'm sure the 3 speakers will come up with all the questions that brought to them and what are, the views on the moment on potential scenarios and where they are at. So the deadline to remember is that this discussion is already going to be kind of prefixed by the Commission proposal that is expecting autumn next year. We know that the new Commission will start working. It will take them 3 months before they are installed, and then something like 6 months to work on their proposal. So something September, October, or between September and November, we're sure that normally the MFF proposal should be on the table, and that's where already things will be decided for us, I think, on the research part. So EARTO, we published a paper. What we try to show is compared to our competitors, what do we need in terms of investment? I think what I wanted to flag you is this graph. We took the OECD data, and what we showed is in general on basic science, this is the blue part. We are pretty covering as much as our competitor. On the applied research, which is the orange, we are also kind of well covered, depends some of the countries less than others. But if we're looking at the front runner in Europe, we are doing pretty similar. But where we are much less covered is on experimental development. And I have to say that the EARTO members are working on applied research and the experimental development. And what we see is that the type of investments we have in Europe compared to our big tech competitors, then maybe this is the type of investments where we should be looking at for the next framework program and discuss in the competitiveness fund when we are discussing RDI, where should the investments go and how to do that. And especially to help to keep us on the tech race. And if we see the type of investments that our competitors do, and if they are doing better than us, then maybe we should think and rethink the way we are doing our policy mix then for the next MFF. That was one of our key message. And we thought it came quite on time because we saw the draft report on FP10 drafted by MEP Eller. And there, to our biggest surprise, one of the proposals was, oh, let's allocate 50% of the budget to the ERC and the EIC. Well, we are very happy with the ERC today, and we do have some comment on the EIC, and our members are actually using those two instruments. We don't think that 50% of the budget should be put to this type of pillar and activity, especially when we see the current funding where it's more 60% to the pillar 2. So, such a statement would make that pillar 2 will become 34% of the budget if you keep the budget constant. But even, in terms of proportion, this is what it gives. And when we are discussing, policy mix and type of investments and saying we need to push up, experimental development and applied research, then I think we're not looking at the right stuff. So a lot of discussion on the pillar 2 positioning for the future. And on the report of the Parliament this week, with a lot of MEP that did quite a lot, that we hope got a lot of amendments from other MEPs. So let's see what the next version will be. We published yesterday also a paper on the partnerships, which are, I think, the key instruments that we have in Pillar 2. And our members are active in all the partnerships, so we could give quite some view. And here we thought it was interesting to flag that what the Draghi report is mentioning, that maybe for the competitiveness fund, we should have, competitiveness joint undertaking. I think that's interesting to see that higher hubs, then at least the understanding of the importance of partnerships for the next activities will be key. So at least that was a good view. So for those who didn't follow all of us, we had recommendation on the tech policy of the future. Then we did few things on the FP10, our remark on EARTO, on the draft report from EARTO as well, on the interim view, on the partnerships. We did things on the MFF. So here you will have the link. We will circulate this one later. And I think this brought us to talk with our speakers. So before I go on, I think this is where we are at the moment. The MFF are going to play a big role. Parliament is making pre-positioning to try to also have some position to discuss during the MFF discussion. So you see that those who are a little bit early and know that the agenda will be done with the MFF agenda for a big part of it, then are already bringing forward quite some positioning. And I think in that context, it's very interesting to hear what Jorglor and our colleague of CEFIC also, Daniel, has to say. So with no delay, I don't take question now. We will go through our different presentation and then we can kick off questions to each of the speakers, for example, and then have some discussion and reaction of each of the speakers to each other, because I think that will be interesting. So Jorg, I think you are the first one. If you tell next, I will move the slides for you. That makes life easier.
Thank you very much, Muriel. And good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for the invitation, first of all. I really appreciate it. Already in the fast and dynamic way you presented the first part, I have a few comments, or I want to link to a few things. First, EARTO, thanks a lot for being very proactive and very active. I think it is the time. It is very important that we make voices heard. And I'll come back to that later. If we go into the activity history that you did, EARTO, and we did, and everybody else is doing, I think we would not, we could waste the whole webinar on just saying what is going on and what needs to go on and what are we doing and where are things hitting the ground now. But obviously the new college is there. Obviously the DGs are getting into gear and into preparing. And Muriel, I want to put a certain edge on what you said. Autumn 2025 is very far away. In reality, conceptual design, architectural things are being decided between now and mid-January and end of February. So please do get the message. This is, you don't have time until next summer to make your voices heard. Architectural design, the structure, the concepts, the priorities, they're being discussed now as the new commissioners get into their jobs, as the new commission needs to present a way going forward, a plan for 25, and also things like the Clean Industrial Deal and the Omnibus and so forth. So really, the time is now. The other thing that you mentioned is the policy mix. I would add to that the governance. I think governance is as important as policy mix, but I will get back to that. I appreciate that we are already discussing about how important collaborative research is, and collaborative at the end of the day is we have somebody who joined who is not muted yet. Thank you.
She's muted.
All right. So to get into it, what I wanted to say is a minute on context AVL and Business Europe. I will start with the strategy paper Business Europe did on the future of the European research agenda. Then thoughts on the current state of play, a few key topics. I hope that I also touch the right topics, not only for industry, which is obviously my focus, but RTOs, and an outlook and a call to action to all of you to make yourselves heard and to contribute to shaping the agenda. If I say context AVL and Business Europe, I will just mention in my job at AVL, which is an Austrian company and very engineering and innovation oriented company. We are a bit like an RTO. We at least we have a very close relationship to RTOs. We've co-founded many of the Austrian RTOs, the Comet centers, as you may know them, and we understand the challenges and the possibilities and the business models, etc., of RTOs, and therefore it is always very encouraging, and we very much appreciate also to be included on these conversations. So I can on one side feel the industry of our customers, and on the other side feel what RTOs, what pressures are on RTOs, and what opportunities RTOs can also bring to the table. From the Business Europe point of view, of course, this is the umbrella function of all the industry federations of all the countries, and there we get a very broad insight on different types of economies, different types of sectors, different types of industries, and also the dynamic that is going on in these political environments. Just think about France, and just think about the latest developments also in Austria and in other places where a lot of shifts are going on. And it is very interesting to bring that also together and focus on the R&D, RTD agenda, as we would say. So having said that, maybe I can start with Muriel, the next one. We published a strategy paper, we call it, on EU research and innovation. This was in summer, and it is like yesterday, but it seems like by now, it seems like ages ago. Maybe if we go to the next one, what we did back then is before many of the discussions really got into gear, we put down 9 recommendations, and you will see them here. Obviously, the warm-up is the innovation-friendly regulation, but then it is about prioritizing EU funding for industrial competitiveness. It has something in there on a council that is being talked about right now. It has something in there about simplification, which is very much talked about right now. On the third, reinforce collaboration and R&I ecosystems. For example, we proposed to extend what is industrial and RTO collaboration to all TRLs. We're not only cooperating on applied research at the end of the funnel with high TRLs. We're doing that from the start, and there's only very few instruments, and usually on the national level that support that. We talk about strengthening public-private partnerships. I think everybody who's following the conversation right now knows that this is very much needed to support PPPs and to think about how to evolve them, let's say. Robust engagement with industry is about openness rather than increased directiveness. When we say assess the performance under 6 of funding instruments, we were thinking about EIC or missions to really ask ourselves what type of instruments these are and how they affect competitiveness and how they affect the collaboration aspect. Improve coherence and synergies was about obviously cross DG and cross industrial sector and cross instruments synergies. Very much important now that we have a discussion about IPCEIs and how they play with JUs, etc. Yeah, and then international collaboration. We want to work with certain partners. We want to use our R&I also to bind our closer international partners to ourselves. Yeah, and finally, and last but not least, for sure, is to keep an educated and skilled workforce. So this was in summer. And if you want to go one further, it seems really like a century ago, because since then, letter report, Draghi report, Haito report, mission letters, commissioners' hearings. Just last week, the ITRE committee getting together, or not, yeah, it was last week, publishing a draft and asking for inputs. And there are many position papers on the way and many discussions going on to shape the thinking, to really understand what will help the European innovation agenda, how will we create a better ecosystem, how will we get faster to market, and how will this make competitiveness work for us. And what I mentioned before, Muriel, I understand that the Commission, the heart of the Commission is working on papers that will come to the fore in January, and by the end of February there will be, clearer papers on Clean Industrial Deal, on Omnibus, maybe on EDF, things that are very important to the innovation agenda. So, having said that, summer's a long time ago, but we're living in the present. So, highly dynamic. We live in this highly dynamic process and many moving parts. I'm a rookie in Brussels, but by now 1.5 years, and I learned from everybody. But it's amazing how slow it seemed at the beginning, when there was not clarity on the Commission, when there was less clarity on competitiveness, etc., and the speed and the dynamic that is going on right now, and the multiple influences and perspectives that are being taken. And so I couldn't really say what is sort of the common, where does everything come together, how it is. In German we say verdichtet. How is the thinking shaped? How is it converging. It doesn't seem to be converging yet. It seems to be there is a lot up in the air. And that is because there's many design variables. There's so many things that one can touch and turn and, you know, and push and shift and change, that it is really hard to see where to put your hand and where to put your priority when you want to make improvements. And there will be improvements. There will be quite a bit of change in this next phase, in this next frame program. And so we do get different signals. And that is, in the positive sense, it is in line with this creative and dynamic process. It means that people take different perspectives and argue them out and want to understand and want to learn. But I will also say, despite the clear commitment to competitiveness that you see all over, competitiveness always comes first, innovation second. But there is not only good signals for industry and R&I in there, nevertheless. And so if I may come to the next one. Yeah, so this is current state of play, where I think, and this is my personal view, because this is not a Business Europe view, but I'm traveling around and talking to more and more different stakeholders and MEPs and Commission and DG and various other stakeholders. And you see probably on this page the highlighted, the bolded topics that seem to be really what it is about. And I'll start at the top. Anywhere where you go, you start with competitiveness, and then most of the time the second word is innovation. And it does mean that there is space to define innovation, and I will pause there. There is time, it is being talked about to redefine, if you will, quite conceptually, innovation, and therefore also the innovation program. There is really a lot of ambition to drive simplification. And it also has to be said in the same breath, there is no desire for deregulation, but there is a big desire for simplification. And you will, and this is good for us because we've promoted this a lot, Noel and others, about speed, agility, and effectiveness. The frame programs need to be faster, allowing us to go to market fast. They need to be agile because priorities change. We're in a technological, in a time of fast technological change. Nothing that you plan or that you plan in advance will necessarily hold. So you need to have the possibility to act and to redirect. And at the same time, it needs to be effective. So we can't overspend, we can't double spend. We need to be very effective. There is a very explicit, and you will have seen this over the past few days, very explicit desire for an R&I investment, a renewed desire, I should say, for those who have been around, a renewed desire to get R&I investments to 3% of GDP. And that means a lot, not only industry, but that also has a lot of implications on the commitments and the involvement of member states. So there is a lot of talk about how to involve member states, how to get upfront commitments, not ex post commitments, but ex ante commitments, so that things that are planned and that are decided that will go ahead, and countries will stay their course and will co-invest. Then there is what Muriel mentioned, the policy mix, and I will make it more blunt even. What's going to happen to Pillar 1, 2, or 3, and where is Pillar 2? Pillar 2 seems to get talked about more by absence than by presence, which is really a topic, really. And you showed also the graphic from 58% to 34%. that is nearly marginalizing the pillar 2, and totally forgetting that we add 2/3 on top of the 58% by co-investing, which 2/3 on top of 34% is a bit less. So we will have a lot less than 3% if the shifts are done in the way that they are being thought about. Something that is very encouraging, I have to say, is more and more people do realize that the topics we have with startups and spin-offs are not topics of the innovation ecosystem, but are topics of a capital market missing. So there is more and more talk in the innovation community about creating a capital market for risk capital, mobilizing private funds, and keeping value creation from startups and scale-ups, especially at the time of refinancing of B rounds and C rounds, etc., in Europe. There's this big topic of the competitiveness fund, and then I called it here council because this competitiveness council that it is the names are being talked about in multiple ways. So I'll just leave that naming game out. But governance in general is something that is very much talked about, and it is a good discussion. It's a necessary discussion. If we change the program, if we adapt the program, how will we get effective governance? How will we get speed in fast decisions? How will we get agility through our decisions? How do we involve industry in decisions? How do we involve the other stakeholders in and create the right balance and foresight? Then there's a lot of talk about the instruments, and you will also have seen that institutional and co-program partnerships are very much talked about, and IBCEIs and the EIC Investment Fund, etc. What is still around is directiveness and key technologies. And finally, dual use security and EDF as it concerns innovation is also being more and more talked about, although there's no clear signals yet. Muriel, if you could connect. Yes, thanks. So what I tried to do is I tried to put where we probably see encouraging signals. And these are the green pluses, which really show the commitment to innovation, which really show that we're going forward, and which really connect innovation to competitiveness and to bringing value creation to market. I also put some points of attention. I will not call them negative, but points of attention where we really need to engage in order to help shaping the agenda. It is about pillar 2, for sure. And I think whoever has seen the reaction on ITRE, will get a sense that this is not only important to a few people and to a few companies and to a few associations, but that this is a general concern, and this is a good thing to make explicit. The competitiveness fund as such, I think, is going to be there, and it can be very helpful. We need to make sure that it works for R&I, that it works for a ring-fenced budget that is not being dipped into like we have today. I will say this, where R&I funds are often, not often, are more fungible than other funds. I'll try to say this diplomatically. This council idea, it is very important, I think, that we increase the visibility and the connectivity between the stakeholders already at the leadership level and the steering level of all pillars, that there is a representation of experts and of industry and of science and of RTOs, and that we steer these things together. And this council can be a very powerful instrument to do that. But we also have to see that it is a powerful instrument to do that. It is definitely going in the right way if we have it, but only the right design will help us to change the governance there. Then on the instruments, any change in instruments brings insecurity but we should not be too threatened by it. I think lots of instruments need lots of improvements, and changing the mix of instruments is also not something that should threaten us. But we should very actively think about what is the right solution and how do we link up the different instruments, how do we create the synergies between instruments, and not that we favor some instruments over others because of short-sightedness. So this is something just where I know we need to elevate our level of thinking, not to defend something that each one of us is into, but to think about how is the best overall design, and at the same time really keep a balanced view on the portfolio that of instruments that we leave behind. Directiveness and key technologies. I think it is also clear that we cannot lose on key technologies, and that there is a certain prioritization and directiveness necessary to keep all ducks aligned and to keep us focused on key technologies and breakthroughs there. At the same time, allowing directiveness to increase means also allowing the openness to increase, so that bottom-up industry, RTO, science can find the best way of solving challenges, and not only be given directions on how to do certain things. And last but not least, dual use security and EDF. I think we all realize how security is a topic, and it is only good that the innovation stream is an important one also in this respect. Otherwise, we will be dependent on weapons to defend ourselves that come from other regions, and where we just sign a checkbook to other regions rather than innovating and creating technology that will help us to defend ourselves. So this is probably, at least from my perspective, and I hope that you find yourself in this. And especially, I would ask to take these points of attention with you and see that we all pull in a similar direction to create a good innovation system for the next FP. And then finally, if you go one further for me, thank you very much. Call to action. Collaborative research. Whoever knows me is that I usually start with collaborative research and how important it is, and how it should not be limited to certain aspects, certain industries, certain TRL, certain whatever countries. Collaborative research is something that fits Europe, fits our strengths, and best equalizes our weaknesses. Collaborative research is the way to competitiveness for us. And all the other regions realize that, and we have an advantage through many frame programs and many decades of working together. But it is under scrutiny, and at least under scrutiny to reform and evolve, if not more. And we need to be very clear to commit to collaborative research, otherwise the whole competitiveness slogan is for nothing. The second point is very important. All stakeholders refer to the same key reports and analysis. You will always hear it, Draghi and Heito and Letta, this and that and the other. Everybody takes a very different spin on it. Right? Everybody has his own version of the truth. And it is very difficult to dispel narratives that are being made. And some of these narratives are not favorable of industry at the moment. For whatever reason, as I said, not been there for long enough, maybe, but I felt I needed to dispel certain narratives for more time than moving the direction on positive things. So it is really something that is hard to do and where we need to pull together. Then partnerships and governance in general are going to be an important level of improvement. As I said, speed, agility, and effectiveness. But it is not clear what this governance will look like. I have heard very little of, what can a council look like, or how can we be faster? How can we be more agile? How can we involve industry and commission and member states better? There's certain signals, but no direct engagement on how to shape this at the moment. And as I also had to realize, the unforeseen ITRE committee report under point 18, there's a lot going on, and we need to communicate a lot, and to all stakeholders, not to forget any stakeholders, because all of them are important, and many of them are new, including the commissioners themselves, including their staff, including some of the MEPs and some of the committees. So it is a lot of, and that is good, because there's openness, and there's ways to shape it and support. But it also could bring very unexpected changes that may not help the innovation system as a whole. My call to action is the time is now, and now means think about it until February, not until summer.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you, Jörg, so much. I think very interesting. Yes, the deadline is when the proposal is made is autumn. That means the thinking is is done before autumn. Autumn is when it's published, and then the deal is done, kind of. So very interesting to hear. And we know that our colleague in the European Commission are also writing their own notes on potential scenarios for the framework program and things like this that have to go to the cabinet, and of course the new commissioner. So let's say we know that the commissioner has asked for a startup forum first beginning of next year. We heard Mark Lemaitre saying yesterday, yes, but this may not be about funding, it's about the framework condition for the startup, which I think was also reassuring to hear. So it's not only just about putting EIC triple and then we're done the job. So I think that's also good to hear that there is a bit more thinking, as you said. I think the capital market, we would recognize that. So it will be interesting to hear from Laure and from Daniel also if they recognize some of the issue and what the take is, depending also the type of industry. But I think we recognize a lot of the issues, and I don't think we have the answers yet or the precise view on all of this question. And I think that's what makes very difficult maybe to build scenarios on where things goes. It seems, as you say, many narrative, very agreeing on the many narrative going in all directions possible. So with like completely different outcomes. So I think this also, Laure and Daniel, will be interesting to hear what your views are. But maybe I try to see if there is some question. I didn't get any on the chat, but we could take one or two questions to Jörg, or remarks, if any. If you can raise your hand on a virtual hand and put your camera on if you have any question. And if not, then I will jump to Laure. Yeah, Ricardo, please go ahead.
Yeah,
if you
hello.
can put your name, organization, and then question.
My name is Ricardo Miguez. I'm the head of office of the INESC Brussels Hub, the largest RTO in Portugal. I just have a simple question. Thank you very much for your presentation. I think you've touched upon all the major issues that we all agree and think about, and so thank you so much for this very structured presentation. I would like you to expand a little bit on what you mean by defragmentation. If you go to the previous slide, I think you have that point there, or maybe the one before, not here, the one before. Is it the one? No, no, it's here. Directiveness, bigger bets, defragmenting, partnership value. So we all agree on partnership value, focus on key technologies, and on a certain degree of directiveness that is important. So I would like you just to expand a little bit on the other two things that you have here, which are the bigger bets and the defragmenting, so that I understand better what you mean by it.
Yeah, Ricardo, thank you very much for your question. I wish I had the answer too. No, what I mean by it is, if you read all the reports, and if you read all the, or if you follow the conversations, then everybody calls for, or no, not everybody, but many call for bigger bets, right? We're sort of too tentative and fragmenting over many partnerships our investments in innovation. And there are certain key technologies that just require a ton of attention, money, resources, etc. And there is not enough focus on those, and therefore we should do that. And there is, we should have a minimum size of partnerships, and we should have a minimum size of projects, and etc. etc. Right? And I would call that defragmenting. Yeah? So in some way, finding bigger tickets. Yeah? Now, I think on one hand, to me, this is my personal thing, this maybe please don't quote Business Europe on this, but as a company, right, you need, there are certain bets you make where you need to put money and resources. And even if people say, no, I have so many other things to do, you say, no, sorry, you have many other things to do, but these are strategically important. So this is part of the portfolio, focus on it, okay? And you put the money where your mouth is, yeah. That's all good, right? And their directiveness is to a certain extent top down, is to a certain extent required. On the other side, and this is a little bit where I have my concerns that if there is too much call for defragmentations and big bets and so on, yeah, that we forget that many very important technologies could be crowded out by this defragmentation. Yeah, the ones who shout louder, get all the money, and the little ones, the little ideas, the smaller topics that not everybody is working on, yeah, get underfunded, under attention, etc., etc. And I think there is both a call for we should defragment and focus on certain key technologies and put the money where the mouth is strategically on this portfolio. On the other side, we need to protect smaller ideas from not getting sucked or pushed aside from these bigger projects, or just not funded because they're not big enough. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you so much for the explanation. I think that we pick up this. I think Jan, you had a question as well, but let's park it because it's a question on the Council, and I will ask that question to the three of them once we have done the presentation. So I think it's an interesting question. So you guys can see in the chat the question of Jan as well. Thank you very much, Jörg. Let's jump to Laure, and then we pick up what are the views we may have on these different council, from EARTO offering 2, Business Europe, and EARTO said, well, we will need some kind of advertisement board and what the governance of Pillar 2 should be. But let's see the views of Orgalim, and then we'll try to see where we are at with some of the key points in the question of the chat, and we try together. So Laure, the floor is yours. Just take me next, and I will do the slide for you.
Okay, thank you very much, Muriel, and great that you're organizing this exchange. I think it's really valuable that we all, see where we mirror, where we disagree, where we can align indeed, because as Georg said, it's the right time. People are looking for information, and sometimes there's a lot of, let's say, educational, pedagogical things to do. So, and especially on the narrative, I think we can really work on that together and have some good proposal to make to the decision maker. So thanks for that. Next one, please. Yeah, just a few words first about Orgalim for those who don't know us. So we are the European Association of the technology industry, and that's a very wide range of different type of industry, which is for some very old, for some very new, but we concentrate on the mechanical engineering, metal technology, electrical engineering, electronics, ICT, so the full range of hard industry, I would say, and also ICT software, digital perspective too. It's a very large sector in Europe, largest manufacturing industrial branch, and we work with more than 11 million people across Europe. And the type of companies is also very diverse because we have 770,000 of companies represented in our association, but most of them are very small SMEs, so we always take also that point of view in our advocacy. So the next one, please. Also overview of our membership. We are a mix of different type of organization. Our base is the National Technology Organization in 21 different countries, covering metal and electric innovation. Also different sectors, very, very specific in their technology, and large corporation who also join us in our action at European level. And the next one, please. I wanted also to say a few words about, first of all, the economic context. In Orgalim, we do issue economic report, economic outlook for the different years. And to show you that it's indeed not positive, we are coming from to 2023, which already saw a slight downturn. You see in 24, we're getting to almost minus 3%, and it's looking at the real turnover, and we expect also in 25 to go even further down, mainly in the big countries in Europe. But this is really what makes the industry sector very concerned about the future. Also, the fact that investment will be quite low as well. So this really puts that into perspective, that this whole economic downturn, it's very well established that it's linked to a lack of competitiveness. And we think that the response to this is indeed to work also on research and innovation. And the sign from the Commission, and especially from the report by Mario Draghi, is very encouraging because it pinpoints action on research and innovation to boost our competitiveness and to catch up globally also on what the other regions are doing. As you know, China and the US are investing heavily, more than us. And we need to take that into account to keep our leadership and to also build our future sustainably for our economy. So now let's look at the next one of what we need from the next framework program. And you can go to the next one too. Looking first at what we have now, the Horizon Europe program. First of all, of course, very important for our members. Our members are really investing in innovation, small companies, big companies, but this is they're actively involved specifically into the PPPs program. This whole collaborative research is very important, and you say that the European Framework Program, that's the bedrock for this, and that's where the value in Europe is really represented. On the PPPs, we do think it's a success story. You know, there's a lot of criticism about the PPPs. There's also a lot of calls of how we can improve it, but we do have in our sector a very concrete result from the PPP, such as the 5G technology that was developed thanks to this. You have the robotics that we now use mainly a lot in our industry. Sustainable transport, many examples do exist, and we think we have to talk about them. But what we saw, our main criticisms here is that we have seen over the years that the company involvement, the private sector involvement has been declining in the framework program. And what we identified identified the main problem is that we're not focused enough in the framework program on the industry needs. We have 32 different clusters under pillar 2 that are not really, let's say, a bit difficult for a company to identify in which cluster can my innovation flourish. It's very difficult to find the right fit. So there's a lack of focus on the needs of the industry here. And then, as we have mentioned already, the bureaucracy and the administrative hurdles are very concrete problems that deter companies to engage in either in a consortia or in a PPP. So it's that's where you see that the success rate is very, very low. It's about 15%. So you can imagine that for a company, it's a very difficult decision to make. So that's why we see there's a lot of improvement to be made here. And now next slide, looking at the proposal. So what do we need? As I mentioned, this FP really needs to look at what the competitiveness means for the industry and where we need to act. So there's a lot of work to be done in terms of dialogue, in terms of bottom-up ideas to come in. And this is where we talk a lot about the private investment in research and innovation, also comparing with other countries where it's much more important. But I think there's an opportunity for FP10 to encourage much more investment from the private sector in European research and innovation, in the R&D investment in Europe. Try to make the project come to us in our continent, to our researchers, and not to move to other regions outside of Europe. When you talk about having the calls, the projects aligned with the needs, really industry voice needs to be there right at the beginning when we define the priorities, when we define the strategies, the roadmap. So this has to be much more proactive, dynamic, and adjust with the realities of the ground. And we've been asking in our papers, in our also discussions with the policymakers for creating perhaps a dedicated scheme for the technological leadership, specifically focused on our main challenges today, the net zero and net zero transition, and also the circular economy. We think that would be really great to start with that part, to focus on those needs that would really benefit to the whole society as well. Then we talked about the proposal in the EARTO report about this European Technology Industrial Competitiveness Council. So I said it in full. For Georg, this is, I can spell it for everybody else. We think it's an interesting proposal indeed, because it has that focus, and we understand the idea of the council is to give strategic direction to the research and innovation projects. So really have that overall direction, and that's indeed where the governance, the governance structure will be really important, because if it's governed with the same people than before, probably we won't have the result that we are looking for. But if we have a governance that is open, that it takes into account the realities, I think that could really work. So we're quite open to that, these ideas of the council on that part. What we don't want to have in such a council is to be too directive. Also, as you mentioned, Georg, this danger that we would focus on some key technologies. We think that research should remain open, research should remain creative. So for us, the technology neutrality aspect has to really be central in the council work. That's few ideas that we have exchanged in Orgalim so far. And finally, talking about an ambitious FP, that's also the money, and we have aligned with many stakeholders on calling for a 200 billion euro budget. So important to keep on talking about that, but also, as you also mentioned, the fact that it has to be protected. Indeed, that you have like 1 billion going to another priority, another billion going to recovery. Very important objectives too, but research and innovation should not be just a pot you can take money out of it. We have to make sure it's protected for the research and innovation goals. The next slide, please, Muriel. About the Pillar 2, that's becoming really our main message here, and we also have identified this alongside with Business Europe, EARTO, and others. Pillar 2 has to be safeguarded. We are risking here to lose the logic of the research development, really, because when you look at the 3 pillars together, we think it's really a dynamic, a living ecosystem. We have basic research, fundamental research with the ideas. Then these ideas can really become tested, can be validated, can become prototypes, ideas, innovation under the Pillar 2. So it's really something you have to take that into account. And again, ideas can be scale up, prototype scale up under Pillar 3. So there's a whole logic there that we think we should continue. And sorry, the light has gone out here. And we really have to take that into account and explain to people, because as I said, a lot of the MEPs which are now entering that debate, they have little idea. And of course, I mean, that's a very specific world, but we have to explain how these things works, how it interconnect. Pillar 2 is also the collaboration. And for our members, it's really major. With Pillar 2 projects, they do access to academia, to the research there. They have access to research organization. They have access also to other industries, other sectors, where they can work together on testing ideas. And this can be done all cross-border, and that's really unique. That's where our members see the value of Pillar 2, and where they want to continue to invest and be present. Also Pillar 2, that's really where you have the capacity to bring more private investment. Because with all this very costly and long testing validation process, industry will not go alone. That's too risky for them. If you have a strong public backing behind, coming with the first part of the budget, the companies will be much more inclined to come and to contribute further with bigger budget to this endorsement made by the public sector on the ID and the type of solutions to be developed. So that's really, and in terms of private investment, is major to look at Pillar 2. Also, it's bringing value to Europe, because you create, thanks to Pillar 2, this homegrown research community, industry community, validation community. You attract highly skilled workforce to work on that. So this has to be taken into account as well, to bring skills here, to keep the skills here in Europe too. And then finally, PPPs, that's where we have the most concrete involvement from our sector. There are things to be done indeed to rationalize it, maybe to have this portfolio approach that you mentioned in the EARTO paper would be interesting to develop too, because we see a lot of overlaps between different type of PPPs. And sometimes, again, to keep in mind where's the competitiveness, where the value is brought to competitiveness. That's where we think the PPPs have to be rethought. And yeah, and then I think I have my third type of ideas to bring you. That's about the simplification. Companies, business look for a pragmatic way to approach research and innovation. And as I mentioned earlier, sometimes difficult to find the right calls where you can be involved. And we think it could be good to make those calls more flexible and agile. And this is really to take into account the development of the technology, the evolution. On the testing validation, you sometimes have several decades, honestly, and the calls should not be, very particular on the outcome, for instance, of your project. You have to take that into account and to follow the creativity and the technology evolution, and that would really be more attractive than to businesses to come up with their ideas. So the bottom up inspiration there. Simplification, that's, I think we already mentioned also with Georg, the transparency. Sometimes our members said, we don't know how much it will take to get a response from my calls, how much will I get on my investment, on my, let's say on my request. These are very concrete things, but that's a deterrent for a small organization to start being involved. And again, the application process really simplifying, streamlining, and to take into account the fact that SMEs do not have the resource to call several consultancy to help them out. It needs to be much more simple. And this idea also in the EARTO report to have a two-step could be interesting too. So you don't have to focus on the bureaucracy, but focus on your ID first. So maybe we can discuss that later too. And then on the administrative bottlenecks, mentioned already the timing, but also the evaluation of your proposal sometimes is a bit cryptic. We understand for members, you don't have very clear evaluation checks in their mind, and also they would welcome things like recommendation to improvement. That would be really helpful. And then there's the also concrete example of the different accountancy and time management system that you use in the Commission and in member states. And that's really causing a lot of extra work for project applicants there and project participants there. And also for having a more efficient result, more business friendly system, is that we think we need a better also transfer of results of those research. Sometimes it gets stuck in the consortia, but we would need a system where it's more accessible, more transparent, the way the results are being distributed. That would be helpful for us. The next slide, please, Riel. Finally, it's really our call here to keep on focusing on excellence. And I think Horizon Europe has been going a little bit everywhere. And we call for that next framework program to really focus on the quality and the ambition of the research under FP10, and not to crowd different policy priorities under that program. And we also plead for that long-term approach. We heard a lot of things about disruptiveness and focusing on the startups. And when we have a research commissioner, which is also a startup commissioner. And indeed, as also you mentioned earlier, we need to realize that there is the long, hard R&D research that is really, the bedrock where the innovation is created. And you should not focus only on disruption, but also on really the solid and the base for that innovation to flourish. So really long-term approach, look at the technological opportunities you have, look also of what are the objectives as a society and also in the science community, and keep on focusing on excellence. So that's my conclusion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Laure, for the also. I really like, because then it complements what Jörg, and I'm sure that Daniel will go on again to more. But I think it dived in some of the elements of Jörg, and so very interesting to see. But it seems that we all have the similar outlook, at least in terms of where we see the challenges and the needs. And I think
Yeah.
well, it's not for nothing if industry and RTOs are working together, you know. Normally they should look in the same direction. So that's reassuring to see that also in our EU networks. That's the feedback we collect also from our base. So I think very interesting to do that. If there is, I would take one question for Laure, and then we'll jump to Daniel. Anybody has or a remark or a question for Laure before we ask Daniel to pick up the mic? Yes, Marcel?
Yes, Marcel van Berlof, DNO. Thanks for your presentation, very insightful. I like your recommendation about efficient transfer of research results, but do you have any recommendations or suggestions on how to do this, how to improve on this?
Well, you have a good question indeed, because what we found from our members, and that they would like to have more access to the research to indeed create new ideas. They think in the smaller consortia, there could be a recommendation then to the project coordinator to have a specific communication to be done. The Commission does things at its own level, but it's mostly for the big project. For smaller consortia, it would be good to encourage that distribution of ideas, perhaps on a common platform. So we have some kind of alignment in the way the results are shown, you know, so to be comparable. That could be ideas to develop, but open to everybody's ideas on that one, because I think that's a problem we can all agree on.
Thank you so much, Laure. Yeah, and Marcel is chairing our working group security and defense, so a lot on the security stuff. So, but thank you so much, Laure. Then I give the floor to Daniel from CEFIC and the executive director, who will have, I think, his reaction to all what was said before. So the floor is yours, Daniel.
Yeah, thank you, Muriel, and good afternoon to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you and discuss this important topic. As you see it here, I'm from CEFIC. CEFIC is a European association for the chemical industry. We have about 600 members representing the industry in Europe. Industry is, it represents 1.2 million people working in that industry, and it generates sales about 600 billion euros every year. As you can see, I'm the executive director for innovation. So innovation is close to my heart, and I would like to start here from a high level and then go into more detailed. First of all, to state that innovation is a key success factor for the green transition, for competitiveness, for strategic autonomy for Europe. So that these are three areas that I guess everyone would subscribe to, that we all have the same goals. And so it's not either or. My perspective is clearly that innovation is the key for all this. Yeah. And innovation is, maybe you have seen, we at CEFIC, we together with collaborators, we published the Antwerp Declaration. In February, it's more than 1,200 CEOs have signed this, and there also innovation plays a crucial role. There's one point on that we request a smart innovation framework, and we have outlined what does it mean for the chemical industry in a 9-point action plan, where then also funding plays a role. So you see it boils down to the topic we're having today, and if you want to have a look at the Antwerp Declaration or the 9-point action plan, then please have a look at the CEFIC website. Today I will focus on funding. Why is funding so important for the industry? Well, you see the industry, and also especially the chemical industry in Europe, is under pressure. And you can only spend money on R&D that you have earned before. If there's no money on R&D, you cannot spend it. So it's And as companies are not earning so much money anymore, but as innovation is a key success factor, it's just kind of a vicious circle. If we need to produce new products and improve our processes, but don't have the R&D, the innovation to support this, then we will fall behind with our competitiveness. We will earn less money and less R&D and so on. So therefore, funding is important, and FP10 plays a crucial role in that. And because it's so crucial, we have co-signed with EARTO the joint statement in July on that FP10 is important for us, and that the budget for FP10 should be increased, that the competitiveness should be part of that. It must be reinforced, and especially there in Pillar 2. Yeah? And so allow me also here a few statements on Pillar 2. Pillar 2 need to be strengthened, that we also already said in July, but now with the latest report from ITRE, from Mr. Ehler, we don't have an official position yet at CIFIC. So what I'm saying here is, let's say, what I think our members would think about it, but we didn't have the chance during the last 3 weeks to have an official position. So take it more as general information or perspective from my side. It is, but it also was already mentioned in political guidance, new ideas, disruptive research, breakthrough research, startups, and that's all good. But don't forget about the industry. If there's a certain urgency to reach Green Deal targets, urgency for competitiveness, and therefore don't forget about the industry that needs to bring this innovation to the market, bring an impact from that research. So Pillar 2 is very important for the industry. Cuts to the pre-competitiveness research and innovation projects, as described in this report, is not supported, at least from my side. We still need to prioritize cross-border collaboration with a strong industrial participation. I'm fully convinced, and I said it as many occasions before, not only here at the EARTO, that the collaboration is key, together with RTOs, with cross industries, with university, academia in general. We need to join forces. We need to discuss these things with policymakers and society in order to address these challenges. So, and there, Pillar 2 and the PPPs, of course, is an excellent vehicle for this collaborative research, and no point in cutting this down. Either should increase it. And I guess if you look at it, that it has shown from Horizon 2020 that there's a high financial leverage from this funding. So there is some positive track record that we can build on, and we can argue that this should not be cut. Then maybe going a little bit into detail about public-private partnerships. There, I'd like to talk about two, one new one and one longer existing one. Recently was just last week confirmed that we will have a new public-private partnership in the area of advanced materials. I'm for EU. This partnership is fully supported by CIFIC. It's great. To chemical industry is supplying this as part of advanced materials. Advanced materials plays a crucial role for competitiveness for the Green Deal. So it's a great initiative. A great initiative to speed up R&D in this area. However, when you put it then in perspective, the goal is there to have industrial leadership in advanced materials, and there will be public funding of 250 million euros over the next 3 years, meaning about 70 million per year. And this you can compare now with the 20 billion euros that are annually spent on advanced materials. So putting this into perspective, 20 billion, and now the Commission said, we give you another 70 million on top, and now we'll become the industry leader in the world. That will be challenging, I guess, right? That this has to be seen how the impact is, and therefore then even cutting this down, I think is the wrong message. I think this needs to be strongly increased in order to really get this industrial leadership. Then looking at another public-private partnership, Processes for Planet. This is a partnership for the process industry, where the chemical industry is 1 out of 8 industries, besides the cement, steel, and so on. And the funding for seven years is 1.3 billion euros. You could say, well, that's a lot of money, and of course it is a lot of money. But then we have analyzed how much money really did go to industry. And in let's say in the previous Spire partnership for 7 years, chemical industry companies or our members got 30 million. And in the new Processes for Planet, we got 20 million in the first 3 years. So 20 million over 3 years, again, compared to 10 billion euros that the chemical industry is spending in Europe every year on R&D, doesn't have that big impact, right? So can say, yeah, this is not only the money goes to the chemical companies. Of course, it's also we do the project together, as I said, in a collaborative way with the RTOs. But certainly this is the money. This is where our companies have are directly involved in giving input to the calls, and but still the outcome for companies is very limited. And so that brings, of course, also the discussion in our membership world. Is it really worthwhile that we as companies or as CEFIC engage in these partnerships if the financial return is limited? And there I would like to connect to what my predecessors here said, Lauren and Georg, that looking at the overall structure of the partnerships, have to think. And again, it's not a position of CEFIC yet, but how about combining PPPs? So there are some overlap of the PPPs, and every PPP has an administrative demand. And our members say, well, we cannot be active in 10 PPPs. We need to select where we put our limited resources, right? The economic situation is bad. Companies need to save costs, need to trim down their resources. So they have to select, to be very selective where to be active here in Brussels. And then one can think, well, what is the best leverage, where to engage, and how can we structure it in a way that okay, I have to read the chat afterwards. Yeah, that where to engage. Okay, and one comment also that from an industry perspective, also important that we have higher TRLs in the PPPs. Currently, we have 4 to 7 that we increases up to 8. Okay, that were PPPs, and then maybe some general comments, and then I think I will stop. Looking at the time, to rather have some questions from you. Yeah, I guess what we also have heard, simplification. I've heard from the Commission, simplification is a new buzzword in the Commission, but certainly this is also very much appreciated for the access and administration of funding vehicles. I'd like to see the increase of the predictability of funding from low TRL to high TRL, even also link it maybe to the innovation fund for first of its kind plan, so that it's kind of venture capital model where we put milestones and say, okay, this technology is really interesting. If you bring it forward, then and of course, not every project, not every research area will be successful, but that it continues. That it's not that we fund something and then we switch the funding to different areas, and then we don't leverage what we have and don't bring it to the market. So that's That's important. Another is linked to regional and the European funding. So European funds could top off the regional funds to have really their focus. And one thing, maybe also what I think Laura mentioned, that we would like to see technology openness. We appreciate targets from policymakers, but would also appreciate if the freedom how to achieve this target is then left to scientists, to industry, to have the freedom of the technologies, but not have policymakers select the technologies that we should develop. Last thing maybe is the scale up is an important topic for us, and there is again, I believe there's an urgent need for funding and support, that we have an impact with our research, that especially in the higher TRLs, for a company, if you want to build a pilot plant, a demonstration plant, then usually there's no positive business case for that it's scale is still too small from a commercial perspective, that you will not earn any money, and of course there's a risk of failure, technology risk, and so on. And there the industry needs support, and the support when you're at the stage where you want to build a pilot plant, then you cannot wait 3 years until you get the funding, until the project is done, because then the risk is that your competitors in other regions have already built that plant. Even if you're a year ahead in your research, you need to continue with that and cannot wait with that. Yeah, so higher TRLs, scale up needs support, and fast application and approval processes, so that we quickly have an impact on, as I said, on the green transition, on competitiveness, on strategic autonomy with our innovations. So I think looking at the time, I think that were the main points that I would like to cover, and leave the last minutes for questions and from Muriel.
Yeah, super. Thank you, Daniel. I think it brings. If I hear the three of you, there is some lines where I think we don't really know maybe where to go or how to ask the next step. And I think that comes to the discussion and the question that went to Jörg on the if we do bigger stuff, so bigger pot of money for industry, like bigger PPP, so maybe not 2 or 3, but one big one where there is clear what is, the research part, maybe discussion on legislation or, a legislative framework to help or to debunk some of the stuff that may not work. And maybe you have manufacturing production support with IPCEI plus, then you are thinking something like the Microelectronic Chip Act, which is more of a bigger policy instruments, and where you have an RDI chapter, but you have other chapters to that policy. Is that where you guys are looking at for your industry, that this type of policy orchestration and, let's say, governance, and where then maybe inside you have different instruments like the RDI grant from the FP, or loans, equity, and others from the EIC, EIB, EIF type of things. And then you would have first of the kind is the innovation fund, and then you just have a catalog of maybe 5 to 6 instruments. And then per type of industry, you would do something a bit of a bigger type of view. Is that what you would look forward, or are you more comfortable? And then that's what would be pushed, let's say, in the competitiveness fund, for example, where you would have to choose 10 priorities, and maybe it's, digital defense, and then everybody fights for having its own industry type of looking at. And then those who are not in Draghi, too bad. Would that be something, or would that be more still looking at optimizing the system we have now? Because actually we never know what we get, we know what we lose. And then we would, so like what we are doing now, saying we have the framework, it needs to be tackled. We have FP, the pillar 2, we know where to do, optimizing and defragmenting. So combining some of the PPPs will be good enough. Because from, we still have 50 plus. So how do you see because it can go from one scenario 1 to scenario 3 or 4 in that range of in between things. Where do you think we may end up, or where do you look at, or where are you best case estimates? What are in the discussion you now have, the type of governance or things you may expect in those different type of possibility and scenarios to go, and what would be probably helping you most? Maybe Jörg, you want to say? And maybe while Jörg takes the speech, I see Stefan from UCA also say that they have the similar view than you in CEFIC also on the decrease of participation of the large OEMs in the partnerships, or let's say in the Horizon Europe in general. But Jörg, you want to react?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting. I mean, so we're now talking potential scenarios and design
potential scenarios for future.
I think a CHIPS JU is a very nice example, although because it has in there key technologies that we really need to make a progress on. It also has many small technologies that could get rolled over, right? Like software is in there, and software always kind of seems to lose, out to hardware and seems to be forgotten and this and that. So there's in there technologies that really need the attention and really need big money. But there's also in there things that are smaller by nature, but as important to get done. Yeah. So we need to find a governance that allows keeping a hand on the big one and protecting the smaller ones, and being agile, and not programming for the next 10 years, but being agile, and every 2-3 years, and every 2-3 years, asking ourselves, did we do the right thing, and having the possibility to make changes to it. Yeah. So then if you think about the next level up, so we're at governance again, right? So there is a partnership, but the next level up, we were talking about this council. I think the council is not a strategic only planning kind of, this is the roadmap thing. I think this council should be something that keeps a total view of the portfolio of partnerships, that keeps a look at the synergies, that also keeps managing the portfolio of partnerships and make sure that there are best practices in all of these things. Yeah. So there is a very different role than just saying, oh yeah, it's a different type of directiveness if we say, well, it's the experts that make this the strategy. Yeah, fine, but we're not going to be the right, we're not going to be right. So also they're dynamic, some sort of council, some sort of bigger GUs, but that have smaller and open formats in there, and that can support key technologies as well as open calls and protect important technologies or important aspects that need to be nourished. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. I think there will be really some discussion on if you have a competitive funds with budget lines like digital, you would expect the EDF to continue Digital Europe 2.0, and that was the discussion. Do you have one big FP where you may have those programs back, or do you demultiplicate? I think that's also a question that comes with the competitiveness funding discussion. But maybe Laure or Daniel, you have remarks or so things you want to pick up?
Yes, maybe if I can just react, and I agree with you, Georg, that this council, we understand, would have, give this overall strategy, and I think that's needed to have a more rational way of looking at the different program, but also in terms of this smaller management, more detailed and defined things. I think it's the time for us to make the proposal, basically. To the policy makers, because they are looking right now at the architecture and the governance part. So let's look at the right ideas. But I think what you have outlined there is the good way to look at it, and this technology neutrality, of course, being very important there. I think there was a question in the chat about the relationship between these two councils, like the so technology, yes, industrial competitiveness, and the societal challenge. It's a very good question, because if this happens, those two councils, there's definitely we need to have a dialogue between the two, because if I remember correctly, societal challenge would imply technology response and solutions. So we know that also on the university side, they are looking at this kind of questions and whether it would be a collaborative opportunity. It would be good. Let's hope it's not going to be just a competition between councils. We really have to avoid that.
Yeah, maybe we don't want two councils and we think one for one pillar would be largely enough. We can agree to disagree with EARTO report.
Yeah, but
I think
then you need to make sure that there's a place for everyone as well, like for all the pillars, because indeed we have our pillar 2 where we focus a lot of our attention, but pillar 1, pillar 3 also need to find a place there.
So maybe it's more the coordination between pillar than splitting the pillar 2 in 2 again. You used to have the cats and the challenges, and we had then pillar 2, we merged the 2. And if we do 2 conciliar, we're going back to the old way. Maybe we have to find a new way, I think, again, probably a question, but I think that's a valid question. Maybe Daniel, you want to react on the
maybe
big things versus governance?
Yeah, a few things. As a European Competitiveness Fund, I understand that they think about combining it all into one. And then first question would be, well, Innovation Fund is ETS funded and FP10 is Multi-Financial Framework funded. So how does this work out? And the next thing is then would say, yeah, we like if it would be one big thing with the same criteria, we would know, okay, for lower TRL, and then that goes through the funnel up to first of its kind plan, TRL 9, what was the focus on Innovation Fund, if this is somehow streamlined. Of course, there is the question is for which industries, or if this is broken down by industries. I, of course, would love to have some earmarked funds for the chemical industry with lots of things to do. With a double twin transition, zero pollution, all these topics, safe and sustained by design chemicals. So I believe there's some challenges in the chemical industry that would require funding. However, I also believe in this collaboration topic and cross value chains, like for example, in advanced materials. So I think it would be good to not to be, let's say, to pick out 10 industries and left 10 others behind. Yeah, like a little bit indicated in the Draghi report, that you would cluster your industries, the ones you want to keep and the ones you want to let go or leave by themselves. So I still believe that we need to have this collaboration across industries, and therefore this approach is like advanced materials, or you could say circular economy, digitalization, and see what needs to be developed in these areas across industries with RTOs, with academia together. I believe it's the right approach.
Yeah. Okay. I think this will be questions that in the governance people will ask, especially with the related of the big project, big things and differentiation. I think that's going to be a key aspect where, especially we heard, I don't know if you've seen some time ago, you had Macron discussing with Draghi in the Collège de France a couple of weeks ago, and they were saying if we want to do big tech champion, we need to choose, and maybe we don't have geographical return per country of certain instruments, but total package EU is better off. So that will also bring probably quite some discussion with member states later on. So anything you want to share before I close the meeting, or one last, let's say, remark or call for action for those who are listening to us? Jörg, please go ahead.
Sure. No, I think it is all very important question, and the good thing is there's a lot of room to shape these answers. The bad news is there's a lot of room to shape these answers, right? So if we don't do this actively, they may fall on the wrong side, and we will have to live with the consequences. So it's now, and let's all think in the good of the overall system design, not participant by participant, like RTOs and industry does. We have a collaborative system. We have to think for the others and not against the others, right? But let's think for the others and let's try to shape it. And if we don't, it'll be shaped on us. And then good luck. Yeah.
Yeah. And then what can we use it then later? I think that's the key question. Thank you, Jorg. Laura, you want to say something?
Yes, sure. And thank you for the very stimulating debate. Also, agree also on giving ideas, but I think we can be bold. I think that's also the call from policymakers that we are hearing. It's we asking for a lot of money, but it needs to be justified. You need to come up with a better system than what we used to have. So it's important to be very concrete what we propose, to be very creative and pragmatic at the same time. So good luck to us.
Yes, that's a good one. Daniel, your last word?
Yeah, thank you for the last word. It's my call to action would be to work together also here in this round, and therefore my high appreciation, Muriel, that you invited us here to come together. Now, I saw here from automotive the comment, we have the same in our industry. So instead of let's say looking only at our membership and focusing on the interest there, let's see take the overall of innovation of R&D into perspective and make sure that the overall pie is increased. To have a say that it's not cut back for defense or other topics, and there I think we can work together to bring our voice across to policymakers. So.
Yeah, super. So let's work together. I think narrative together from industry RTOs and the supply chains and colleagues from academia also, which I think also you see or here AUA has done quite a work also on supporting the pillar 2, saying, hey, we need the whole framework program. I think was very much welcome too. So thank you very much to the three of you. Thank you for all the people who stays a little bit longer to listen to us. The slides will be placed on our website, so feel free to come in. We are all invited also to our next annual conference where we will be discussing if we don't have EU tech, we don't have EU competitiveness. I think that's following up the kind of action. We will be in Valencia where we still have a lot of RTO despite the floods, and they're trying to help the economy there also recover. So hoping to see you all also in Valencia. And I'm sure we will have more discussion together on FP10, and we'll surely be working with the club of signatory of our July declaration, as Daniel was mentioning. It's 111 association together. So I think if we hear the call of Jorg also to be active now, then we should manage to have a good system where we can keep working together and even work more efficiently together. So thanks a lot. And thanks for all the people in the chat also who contributed to the discussion today. Much appreciated as well. So thanks to all and have a good weekend as from tonight onwards. Take care, everybody.
All the best.
Thank you, Muriel. Thank you, everyone. Bye. Have a good weekend.
Bye. Take care.